Is nature entirely good? When most people think of nature, they think of positive things, scenes of transcendent beauty, like large forests, deep blue seas, sinuous rivers that shimmer in the sunlight as they course through landscapes made lush with life because of the water they provide, or of the luminous, kaleidoscopic beauty of the immense cosmos. That's the beautiful side of nature. But nature has an ugly side. There's the obvious fact that species compete against each other. Animals fight and devour other animals just to survive. A century ago, the poet Alfred Lord Tennyson captured this side of nature in the timeless line, "Nature, red in tooth and claw." There is a very bloody side to nature, even though it's not usually the first thing we think about when we think of it. And there are other, even more dangerous and deadly sides to nature. Even the most aggressive animals can only kill so much, but diseases and viruses can kill a lot more. History has witnessed plagues that wiped out millions and humbled whole civilizations. Natural disasters like hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, and earthquakes have caused similar levels of destruction. So nature is out to get us, and science and technology are the tools we use to struggle against nature. But what are science and technology? Science is the process of pursuing knowledge about the natural world, in particular, how the natural world works. Broadly speaking, technology is the application of that knowledge for some useful end. Definitions similar to that are what you will most commonly hear, but I'm asking what both are in a deeper sense. The answer? Science and technology are the means we use to manipulate nature for our ends. Take, for example, the screen you are watching this video on. Maybe it's your phone or computer monitor. Well, science was used to deduce the principles of electromagnetism, which then allowed humans to create pixels, which together produce light organized in a manner that broadcasts this video to you. There are several interpretations of science and technology. I will focus on three, using the lens of some Greek myths. In Greek myth 1, Icarus was a man who attached wings of wax to himself and flew until the sun melted them, and he dropped into the sea. One of the intended lessons of that story, of course, is that technology has a downside. Wagging our fists at nature by manipulating it to our ends has negative consequences. Icarus's wings might have carried him up, but the price for that was a fatal fall. This view of technology is common in films, sci-fi, and television. It's the idea that science and technology provide no free lunches. In other words, there must be some downside to technological progress. You can see this in films like Jurassic Park, when Jeff Goldblum's character Malcolm, referring to the scientifically enabled revival of dinosaurs, says, quote, "Scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should." He basically concludes it was a mistake. In day-to-day life, people often express similar skepticism about other technologies. They'll remark, often without evidence, that smartphones cause cancer, calculators make you dumber, and so on. Let's move on to the Promethean interpretation of technology. Prometheus was a god in Greek mythology who had a lot of sympathy for humans. He's said to have stolen fire from the other gods and given it to humans, literally. But his gift of fire is also meant to symbolically represent science, technology, arts, and creativity. The Promethean interpretation of technology is more likely to praise its creative aspects and its positive attributes. It views technology as mostly good, if not wholly good. You'll hear this view of technology from Silicon Valley types a lot. Entrepreneurs, CEOs, other innovators tend to have this view. Let's move on to the Sisyphean interpretation of technology. I think a more balanced assessment of technology is the Sisyphean interpretation. Sisyphus was a man condemned by the gods to roll a boulder up and down a hill for all eternity. Sisyphus is not often used as a metaphor for science and technology, but I think some aspects of his story are fitting for that purpose. Perhaps the most famous modern interpretation of Sisyphus comes from Albert Camus' book-length essay, The Myth of Sisyphus. Albert Camus was a famous French philosopher who wrote a lot of works from the 1940s into the 1960s. In that essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, Camus uses Sisyphus as a metaphor for human life. He argues that Sisyphus's toil is similar to the struggle of regular human beings, like you and me, because Sisyphus's plight mirrors that of humans in its roteness, that is, its repetitive and laborious nature. Much of life is repetitive and cyclical. You have to get up to go to school or work every day, again and again and again. We have to constantly organize or disorganize surroundings, such as when we clean our rooms, combine ingredients to cook, organize folders, digital or physical, create playlists, plan to meet up with friends, etc., etc. Camus was of course right to offer that interpretation. But I'd add that Sisyphus' story also encapsulates the struggle against nature. He rolls a boulder up a mountain. The boulder, mountain, and gravity are all adversarial aspects of nature. They work against him. They symbolize humanity's struggle against nature in general, including everything from bad weather to natural disasters to famine to disease and more. But Sisyphus eventually rolls his rock to the top of the hill, signaling his triumph over the challenge nature presents. But of course, his triumph is brief, because the boulder rolls down again, and again, and again. In much the same way, we humans have defeated many of nature's challenges. Through science, via technology, we have created cures for diseases, produced fertilizer to stave off famines, and manipulated electricity to create machines that spare us from drudgery. But there's always a new challenge that arises, a new challenge that nature throws at us. And that means we have to roll the boulder back up again. We have to research and develop new technologies, or apply old ones in new ways to combat the troubles that nature produces. Maybe someday we'll get to the mountaintop and stay there. Maybe our command of science and technology will be so great that we'll have absolute control over nature, and thus nature will no longer be able to hurl new threats at us. That's the dream, that one day we'll reach the mountaintop and stop. But till then, the struggle rolls on.